how quickly things can change in a week's time. Last Sunday's Gospel reading opened with this affirmation: "Do not be afraid, little flock, it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." Now that's good news. That's good news. And here it is 1 week later. And the Gospel proclaims, "I came to bring fire to the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. I have a baptism with which to be baptized, and what stress I am under until it is completed." It is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, and a week later, I came to bring fire to the earth. Baptism by fire. It's usually associated with combat situations. The good guys against the bad guys. But beloved, Jesus isn't speaking of one army against another army. So who are the combatants in this conflagration that will take place? Combatants. He lists them for us. Father against son, mother against daughter, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, daughter-in-law against mother-in-law, son-in-law against father-in-law. Those are the combatants, and that's where the warfare occurs. I don't know about your household, but I know that in mine, things can get testy. But that kind of warfare, no. At least not yet. What has happened in a week's time that we have gone from Jesus proclaiming good news to speaking of warfare within families? What has happened to make that change so dramatic and so drastic in just 7 days' time? It is because Jesus has decided to go to Jerusalem. Last week's Gospel of Good News was before he made that decision, and what you have heard this morning has all taken place in a week's time. Jerusalem is the center of the Hebrew faith. It is the site of the temple and the home of the religious aristocracy. And next door to it is the Roman governor's mansion and headquarters. And not far away is the home of the commander of the Roman army. Jerusalem is the seat of power religiously, politically, and militarily. And anyone who confronts it, who challenges its authority, will pay the ultimate price. I have decided to go to Jerusalem. So says Jesus. I recently had the opportunity to watch a rerun of the filming of Dr. Martin Luther King's speech on the steps of the Capitol. I'm sure that most of you remember it. It was his "I Have a Dream" speech. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out its true meaning of its creed. I have a dream that all men are created equal. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. You remember the scene? That kind of rhetoric proclaimed in that place can get you killed. And it did. It did. So as of this Sunday, we are on the road with Jesus as He makes His way to the seat of power, politically and religiously, to Jerusalem. The center of power in then that part of the Mediterranean world. It is Caesar's world, so it is proclaimed, certainly by Caesar himself. It's a world of political intrigue, the world of power politics, the world of mighty competing armies, the same world that you and I have grown up in, and that we inhabited still. For the next few weeks, we will be spectators. Spectators as Jesus confronts that world and unveils an entirely different kind of power and a different set of ethics. What Jesus will unveil is a different set of values and a way to live in this world with courage and hope. As I read the gospel for today, I had sort of a flashback. Found myself thinking about a time a number of years ago when I agreed to help chaperone a group of seminarians from Virginia Seminary on a 5-day trip across the Sinai Desert. Our guide was the course director at St. George's College in Jerusalem. We crossed the border between Israel and Egypt. The way that border operates, and I'm sure it still operates the same way, there is a large slope going down on the Israeli side and a slope going up on the Egyptian side, the valley below. On each of those slopes are machine gun nests. If you want to cross the border, you present your papers. If they are approved, then you walk the 2 miles down one side and up the other side. The week before we crossed, 2 men tried to do it with improper papers. They were machine gunned 200 yards down the slope. There were about 15 of us who made the crossing uneventful. Got delivered to our first campsite outside of a small village. Began to set up camp. They told us the name of the village, which meant absolutely nothing, at least to me. But the English translation of the name of the village is the City of Second Wives, where the wealthy Egyptian businessmen store their concubines. They visit on weekends. The women sew. They make things. And anybody that crosses near the village, they come to sell them. We were making camp, busily digging trenches and things, and looked up, and there was about 8 or 9 women. They never spoke. They had spread on the ground cloths, blankets, and on it were the things they had made. They were selling them. I suspect there are other outcroppings all over for the villages of second wives, even in our own land. On our third day out, we spotted 3 camels with riders who approached us. And you have to understand, in that part of the world, for thousands of years, there has developed a way of doing things. So when you meet travelers in the desert, there is a protocol that you follow. And our guide, fortunately, was able to represent us. When they got to our camp, the first thing we gave them bottles of cold water. Shared our leftover breakfast. And then the interchange began. We chatted for a while. As they rode off, our guide explained to us, who understood virtually nothing that had taken place, what had taken place. He says there are 3 questions that are exchanged, answered, and the questions exchanged when travelers meet in the desert. The first question is, who are you? And the response is your name, who your family is, where you are from, and maybe a little bit about your family. I am Don, son of Harold, so-and-so and so-and-so. Where have you come? The second question is, where are you going? Travelers told us of a nearby village. They were going to buy supplies, foodstuffs mostly. But there's a third question. And the way it is phrased is interesting. We're asked, to whom do you belong? To whom do you belong? The answer involves politics. It involves family. I am so-and-so, son of the blacksmith. Our family has been there for 400 years. A little bit about yourself and your family. But to whom you belong is much larger than that. It's where the politics come in. Are you part of a movement? Who is your leader? Ultimately, where your allegiance lies. It's all part of your identity. To whom do you belong? Seems to me that for the next few weeks you and I will travel with Jesus to Jerusalem. And once again we will relive that encounter between him and the religious and political authorities in that city. To observe the exchange of power between Caesar and God. To whom do you belong? If you do not know to whom you belong and you want to be reassured, then turn to page 308 in your prayer book, where there is a description of how to do a baptism. The basin of water, the jug of oil, the bishop or the priest ask your sponsor your name. Who will you be called, or what name will you be called by for the rest of your life? Part of your identity. And then the officiant takes a little jar of oil, been blessed by the bishop. Puts some on his thumb, or her thumb, makes the sign of the cross on the recipient's forehead, and speaks those wonderful, wonderful words of your identity and my identity. You are marked as Christ's own forever.